Hi, doctor. This is a case that is pretty advanced for a crossbite and crowding case. This may be one to refer to a specialist, but if the patient is motivated to do aligners only, we can certainly make an improvement. There's a lot about this initial setup that I'm not a fan of, particularly the molar movements. These are not very predictable. Second molars cannot be predictably moved with aligners alone, and these first molar movements, especially distalizing these first and second molars, not going to happen. These molars are simply not going to move distal, and then the result would end up being with this anterior segment more forward than anticipated, and likely an anterior interference and a posterior open bite. There's also some risks with trying to expand this first molar. When the tooth isn't even fully captured, that's certainly not going to happen. So one of the modifications we did was request to the technician to try to detail the second molar so that we can get a little bit better grip and retention of the aligner on the arch, as well as eliminate those movements. You can see a lot of the comments that I made to the technicians here. These are some common things that I put in. You're welcome to take a look at those. So besides changing the premolars, let's talk about tooth number 10 or 2.1. So it's moving to the buccal, which it needs to solve the crossbite, but it's moving buccal and then it's doing a straight translation over to the distal. With such a small tooth and a bite ramp on it, that's not a very likely movement to happen. So one of the things I requested to the technician was just to kind of make all of that one movement and to not even do the extrusion as well. That's asking a lot out of a small tooth. This tooth is short because it's been broken, so I'd rather leave the gingival margins similar to where they are and then restore this tooth at the end. So the attachment that I like to use for that is the optimized lateral support attachment. This movement still might be tricky, and we might need to take the attachments off and re-impress or rescan partly through the treatment to get a better grip on it as we go along, but this is certainly a good start. One of the things I would do is I would take the bite ramp off of the lateral here, add it perhaps onto the canines instead, just so we can get some more surface area there. So I'm going to make that into a request here. As well as going back to the rotation attachments. I'm not sure why these got changed. These canines do need to rotate, and the best attachment for rotation is this optimized rotation attachment. You can see in my previous comments that I asked to eliminate all mesiodistal root torque on canines and premolars because those are difficult movements that are not very beneficial to the case. I also eliminated rotation on the premolars because that rotating these premolars is far less important than solving the deep bite by doing a lot of anterior intrusion and making sure that we have plenty of retention for that. So if she doesn't have a crown, although you can put attachments on crowns, I would add additional retention attachments on these molars. Whenever we have a deep anterior open, deep bite, as the lower anterior intrudes, the posterior, the aligner wants to pull off of the posterior. So if we can get more of retention, which is different than anchorage, retention on these teeth, then that lower anterior intrusion is likely to be more predictable. The last thing I need to look at is, do we need to add IPR to the lower arch because of a lack of buccal bone? And I think that would be a good choice. We may want to add IPR actually on both upper and lower arches, just so we can make sure we're not causing a perio issue here, which should be easy to execute with these triangularly shaped teeth. So I like to do this just with the 3D controls. Let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, after I submit this modification, get the proper retention attachments and improve these black triangles with IPR at the same time. This next treatment plan will be the one to approve.